Hey everyone, welcome back to Embody the Phoenix. I'm Candace, and today I'm going to be sharing my story about my late diagnosis of ADHD and autism, or the coined term AuDHD. So, this isn't going to be a perfect or polished story, it's just going to be real and raw. So, let's get into it. Growing up, I didn't really look different, so that made it really confusing for me when I was often bullied. In elementary school, I had a group of friends who I would say were pretty similar to me, but I also had a childhood bully from kindergarten to eighth grade. And I had several other bullies along the way within those formative years. Even some of my cousins were pretty mean. I heard a saying recently that said, quote, doctors still struggle to diagnose autism, but a bully can spot it within 5 minutes. That feels pretty true, quite honestly. There were also other signs, though. I always got distracts others and inattentive on my report cards. I was deeply emotional and highly sensitive. I always had to have the last word, which I now know was called demand avoidance. I was also pretty scared of loud noises, and due to poor proprioception, I had a phobia that fireworks would even fall on my head. I also used to read the American Medical Association book when I was about 8 because I was fascinated with things like physiology and medicine. I would rewatch movies and listen to certain albums on repeat. I used to even rub my stuffed animal. So I like certain textures that soothed myself to sleep and bounced my leg a lot when I was anxious. And that all started pretty young. I remember bouncing my leg in second grade when I was asked to read aloud. People said that I was too sensitive, too loud, too rude, or too mean. I didn't always struggle with friendships, but I definitely did not have a ton of friends either. I had the same friends throughout elementary, but I also got in trouble in elementary, so I did impulsive things during that time as well. And yeah, here and there I got in trouble. In middle school, I did have a friend group with a matriarch friend. So that felt pretty safe because I was close to her and she was not to be played with. But also, I struggled with emotional regulation and definitely with grades as well. In high school, I had 3 close friends and then a few other girls that I still connected with from middle school. But I definitely had more people who either stopped talking to me or who just didn't like me for whatever reason. I was definitely othered for making the same exact mistakes that I watched other people clearly making. So I started skipping school a lot in high school to avoid people. I distinctly remember certain girls saying, "You think you're all that." And I didn't even know them, and they definitely didn't even know me. I wasn't even thinking about other people most of the time. Most of the time, I was actually literally in my own head. But I heard so much that eventually I just started internalizing it all. I think high school was probably the hardest part of my life. In college, I was definitely more disciplined, but definitely more masking. I even joined a sorority. I stayed on top of my grades, but there were definitely many nights where I spent my entire night typing last minute papers. That's for sure. And I had become pretty much a perfectionist at that time and socially acceptable person, but it came with a lot of stress. With my first child, I recognized signs of ADHD in him, but I didn't really know a whole lot about it, and I definitely didn't see it in myself at that time. So I also didn't know a lot about autism at all. The turning point came for me when I had my second child, and I was already heavily hitting burnout mode by being a teacher, also trying to balance work and home life. So I can never just equate my anxiety or my low points to being neurodivergent, but I didn't know anything about autism for sure. When my second child was around 2, though, I was pretty sure that she was ADHD. But when she was around 2.5 or 3, I started noticing other things as well. So she would come home after being at pre-K or being outside, and she would lay on the kitchen floor and spin around and watch the fluorescent lights. She would have these intense meltdowns also that I thought at the time were tantrums, but she was never really seeking anything. Like, she didn't want anything. And they were pretty hard to console her from. Also, she would have them at any time of the day. So they would be in the morning, the afternoon. It really didn't matter. She also used to collect a lot of rocks and leaves, and she still actually does that until this day. So I started researching to try and understand what she was going through or what was going on with her. And as I looked up sensory processing disorder and ADHD, I stumbled on a lot of research about autism, and I had a light bulb moment. The more I researched, the more I found myself in what I was reading. So I decided to get us both evaluated. So my first evaluation had to be done remotely because I was in China, and I did it with a doctor located in Canada. At that time, China was pretty much really just accepting autism at all, and you can't be an expat and be there with autism. There were a ton of assessments that I had to complete for her and submit, and then I had to wait about 6 months to get the ADOS interview done. So I decided when I moved back home that I wanted to get a second evaluation done in the office because I was experiencing a lot of imposter syndrome at that time. So the second evaluation was in person. It was about 4 hours long. It had a lot of tests that I had to do, and also had the ADOS interview. 2 weeks later, I got my diagnoses of ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and generalized anxiety disorder. Actually hearing it the second time around really helped me settle the imposter syndrome that was still lingering so much. So it really just made sense. It explained all those earlier experiences. It explained my executive function challenges. It explained my struggles with certain environments, trying really hard to parent and work. And that's when it all really cracked open for me. After diagnoses, I started unmasking. I started saying no to things I don't want to do. I started stimming freely. I created a home space that is cozy and sensory friendly. I did all this on purpose. I've joined neurodivergent support groups. I've even requested work accommodations. And I give myself full permission to even let the dishes sit in the sink. Just one night, though. But one hard truth that I had to face, I think I didn't get the support that I needed growing up. But honestly, then thinking back on that, given how ableist things really were back then, not that they're not now, I probably would have rather not. So if I could go back in time, I would tell my undiagnosed self the following things, I think. Stop worrying about what people think about you. Be you. You don't owe anybody a softer version of you, a nicer version of you, a more palatable version of you. I think if people don't like you, honestly, they can move around. If you are considering getting evaluated, do it for the internal validation of your lived experiences. If you choose to self-identify and not get evaluated, that too should be honored. You will know what feels right for you, for you. And if you are also late diagnosed, I want you to know that it's okay to feel everything. You don't have to rush into gratitude or relief. Sit with whatever works for you. As a neurodivergent people, we spend so much time worrying about how other people feel or view us, and not nearly enough time checking in with ourselves. So now that you have the language for your own experiences, you can use it. It doesn't have to fix everything, and it probably won't, but it definitely does explain a lot. And for everyone, we just really have to stop defining autism by outdated stereotypes. You probably pass autistic people every day on a regular basis and wouldn't even know it. Heck, you might be autistic and not even realize it because you think that everyone else sees the world the same as you. So, what I think thriving looks like for me, I think thriving really just doesn't mean being perfect. It means being perfectly imperfect. It means being authentic. I think it means showing up for yourself every day. I think that's it. That's what thriving is. So if this resonates with you, share your story in the comments. Whether you're just starting this journey or you've been walking this journey for a while now, you are not alone, and you are definitely not broken. Take care of your nervous system. See you in the next one. Bye.